So the discussion is going to be, and feel free to ask questions as we go along, that are pertinent to the topic. Is going to be, so since it's a Shana Mu'beret, a pregnant year, we have 2 Adars. That means many times you double up a Torah portion on Shabbat, but not this year. This year, we have to spread them out. So usually 2 Torah portions of Vayakal Pekudei are put into the same Shabbat. And this year, since we have an extra month, we got to spread them out, basically. So this topic that falls over here, as you open up into this area of the Torah in general, is the Mishkan. The Mishkan was, it's hard to describe it with one word. They use the word tabernacle, but I don't know what a tabernacle is. So think of it as the temple in Jerusalem and everything in it, but before it took on a permanent residence, it was a portable structure. And it had beams made of wood, planks, and had curtains that went around it. And there were inside various implements that were used. There was a menorah, if you remember, right? There was an altar, the Mizbeach. They brought sacrifices. That was actually the main feature and function of the Mishkan. There was a shulchan, a table that had lechem panim, 12 breads in 2 racks of 6. The Torah, by the way, goes into so much detail about every single one of these implements, even the way they were decorated. Something is cooking. And it's not just the bread that ends up on this shulchan. And inside the Mishkan itself, there was a curtain. Behind it was the Ark, which we've spoken about before, which was a golden box. And inside that golden box was a wooden box. And in that wooden box was a golden box. And in that golden box were the Luchot, the 10 Commandments, and the first ever Torah. Some say that Torah that's Moses' Torah. Some say it was inside the box, and some say it was on a shelf outside the box. And on top of it, something called the Kaporet, which was a golden lid fashioned together with it into one solid piece, 2 birds with the faces of children, according to one opinion. Some say an adult and a child. One boy, one girl, they were facing each other whilst looking down with wings that came up and tipped. Okay? This was the epicenter of Jewish life. On Yom Kippur, the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, the big kahuna, would enter in to the holiest place in the entire world, where that Aron was. No one else could walk into besides him the entire year. And he would say the holiest name of God on the holiest day. And this was a major part of the ceremony. The rest of the year, the outside implements were used, the Kohanim would go in, they would use the breads, they would bring sacrifices. It was there for a number of reasons. Every time, or pretty much every time the Mishkan is mentioned, right before it, or right after it, it starts to talk about Shabbat. What's the connection? For example, the Torah begins in this week's parasha, V'yakel Moshe Chalatas Bnei Israel. He assembled all the Jewish people together and says, these are the words, Ela Devarim Asher Tziva Hashem, that God commanded. Sheishet Yamim Taseh Malacha, for 6 days do Malacha. Malacha does not mean physical work. It means creative work. Uv'yom HaShvi, on the 7th day, Yelachem Shabbat Shabbaton. It's a Sabbath of Sabbath, La Hashem, for God. That's interesting. Not for now, but it's interesting why for God and not for us. If you do Malacha, you're dead. Do not do Malacha. You can do Malacha all week. All creative work you want to do, no problem. Shabbat comes, you're done. And then it says, but they don't make a fire in your house. Now, actually, there's no laws of Shabbat mentioned in the Torah itself, except this one. Fire. Why? Interesting discussion. One short answer is because fire is pretty much how we create everything in this world. We're all about fire. Everything around us, the clothing we wear, the tables, chairs, food, right? Fire goes through it. So fire is such a common thing in our lives. Torah says, don't do fire. That's one interpretation. There's many other interpretations. But right after this little discussion about Shabbat, which is all well and good, suddenly it says, oh, by the way, let's talk about the Mishkan, the contributions that went into it, and the construction of it, and everything else that was done in order to make this Mishkan. What is the Mishkan? Which was a temporary, transitory structure that existed only for 40 years, actually a little bit after as well, and then eventually took a permanent place in Jerusalem as the Beit HaMikdash, the temple. What has that got to do with Shabbat? The two are juxtaposed. Actually, it's so much to do with Shabbat that without Shabbat, you wouldn't have the Mishkan. And without the Mishkan, we wouldn't know what even to do on Shabbat. How can this be? So there's something very big happening over here, and it goes like this. Check this out. The Mishkan is the holiest place that exists in the universe. We are all into the holiness of space. Shabbat is the holiest time, more than any other time, more than any other Jewish holiday. I know you thought Yom Kippur was holier. You're wrong. Shabbat is greater than Yom Kippur. Actually, Yom Kippur is only Yom Kippur because it's called Shabbat Shabbaton, Sabbath of Sabbaths, which is how Shabbat is called. So it gets its holiness from Shabbat. So Yom Kippur is secondary, and actually Shabbat is the only, if you will, ceremonial mitzvah, if you will, that occurs in the Ten Commandments. So whatever it is big. So now we have two elements over here, time and space, and we're connecting them. And not just theoretically, we're going to see that these two are totally enmeshed. Watch very carefully. I'll show you something, it's going to be a short class, but something very, very cool that connects them. There's many things that connect them. Something very, very cool and interesting. First of all the laws of Shabbat, the stuff you cannot do, of which there are, how many categories? Anybody know? 39. Lamed Tet Malachot. 39 creative activities you cannot do on Shabbat. Okay? When it describes the Mishkan, it says you can build the Mishkan because it had to be constructed. You had to make the wood, you had to plane it down and prepare it all, make the curtains and all the urios of the curtains and all the coverings, right? You had to stitch it all up. There's a lot of stuff involved in it. All that stuff, the Torah says, could be done except on Shabbat. You couldn't build it or construct it because it was broken down and built up 42 times because there were 42 journeys in the desert. So 42 times this Mishkan had to be pulled down and built up, pulled down and built up. But it says, by the way, you can't build any part of the Mishkan on Shabbat, and you can't even assemble the Mishkan on Shabbat. So not only is there a physical proximity between Shabbat and the Mishkan a number of times in the Torah, especially here in Vayakel, even before and again after, we see there is some legal and deep way that these two things, this holiest time Shabbat and this holiest place, the Mishkan, are connected. How do I know what not to do on Shabbat? Ask my LOR, my local Orthodox rabbi. But where does he get it from? And the answer is, you go back to the Mishkan. What did they do to make the Mishkan? And there are 39 activities divided up into 4 groupings. Once you know them, you know what you should not do on Shabbat. The positive mitzvot, you're not going to see there. You'll see hints of it, interestingly enough, as we're going to see, but you don't actually see it itself. So all of the laws of Shabbat are learned out from the Mishkan. Now it gets very interesting. Check this out. When King Solomon built the first temple in Jerusalem, Beit HaMikdash, which remember we said was the permanent abode of the Mishkan. The Mishkan was a portable tabernacle built up there, up down, up down, up down. Eventually it took permanent residence in Jerusalem. When he built it, he made a very cryptic statement. And I'm going to paraphrase it for you, but not so well. That which was, it will not be, but then it will be. That was a bad paraphrasing. But that's what he said. And the rabbis jump onto these words trying to figure out what he's saying. I want to give you one interpretation of what he was referring to. He said, this temple that's being built right now, he knew prophetically, or in some way he understood, it wouldn't always be there. How he knew this, I don't know. He's the wisest of all people. But he knew it. And he realized at some point the merit of having this holy temple in Jerusalem. Jerusalem was always be ours. But this place wouldn't always be ours. But he says, don't worry, don't panic. There's something that's going to take its place. Now watch carefully. Let's go through. We went through the various implements and vessels that were in the Mishkan, which were found again in the temple. Let's go through them again. Let's try to figure it out. We said there was an altar. On the altar, they brought sacrifices, korbanot. Mizbeach. As well as that, they used to pour salt onto many of the sacrifices. Okay? And they used to even pour wine on the altar. Nischa, they would pour wine on it as well. Once you're in Sukkot, they would pour water. That's interesting. But most of the time they would pour wine on it. Opposite it, there was the menorah. The menorah was the candelabra that you know, that was lit every single day, twice a day. One light stood the entire time by the high priest, by the Kohen Gadol. Sandwiched between both of them was the Mizbeach HaKatoret, the incense altar that was there. There were 11 spices that were made, and they were crushed out and they were burnt, and the smell was unbelievable. And it would travel outside, the rabbis tell us, outside of the Jerusalem, even outside the local area, outside the temple. They say the brides, the Gemara says, would walk around before the day of their marriage, and they want to smell good. Right? Perfume was expensive to make. They would allow the smell to touch them, and they smelled fantastic, delicious. Opposite, we said there was a Aron. The Aron, we said, was a gold box, within which was a wooden box, within which was a gold box. Within that was the first ever Torah of Moses, or some say, the Talmud says, on a shelf outside, or the Luchot, the 10 Commandments, the first ever Luchot. But you know what? As well as that, there were other items. There was a kior, there was something you wash your hands with. There was a shulchan, there was a table. On that table was bread that was left there the entire week, and miraculously, somehow, for some reason, stayed fresh the entire week. 12 breads. Can you see something over here? Something sticking out to you? It's not rhetorical, I'll take an answer. Yeah. Isn't that extraordinary? You see, the menorah we don't have. Where it is? Maybe Rome, I don't know, maybe secreted under the Temple Mount. The lights are replaced on Shabbat. The meat that was on the altar, we have no altar anymore. It comes on to the Shabbat table. The breads, now we have lechem mishnah, 2 loaves. You know, some people have a custom. One of my friends, a very holy Jew, he will have 12 challahs, a little telly, not 12 whole, the whole telly covered in the whole thing, and nothing to eat except the bread, which is good, right? All those dips. But he has little 12 challahs as a remembrance of this. Right? And he has them there. He has that all grouped up over there. And the beautiful smell as you walk into the Shabbos home, and it wafts out into your nostrils. You know, what smells better than that? Than your mother, your grandmother's, right? The cholent and the chicken soup, it's there for you. But what about the Aron, the Torah? Where's that? That's the Torah you study at your Shabbat table. Because really, that's what Shabbat is for. So King Solomon intimated something amazing to us. He said, listen, the Mishkan is not going to be there. The temple's going to be gone. But don't worry, that which was will be. And there will be a way to connect to the Holy of Holies. And that is not in the synagogue, as some people or even movements would have you believe, but in your Mikdash Mat, in your Shabbos table, it's all there. And obviously the wine and the salt, and we wash our hands, it's all being completely reproduced. You want to get to the Holy, you want to stand on the kotel, feel so spiritual, you don't have to go there. You can, it's a beautiful thing, I go often. But your Shabbos table has done it. Now, one of the main purposes, I'm going to blow your mind right now. Your brain's going to turn to guacamole and ooze out of your ear. One of the main reasons people went to the Beit HaMikdash was actually for kapara, atonement. It's one of the main reasons we had it. To find atonement for our sins. Okay, the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, or the various korbanot we brought, the things we said, vows we made, whatever it was. There's all different types of mistakes we made, and boom, there it came. I've got some great news for you. You thought Yom Kippur was the most important day of the Jewish calendar. Right, cool, everyone goes, synagogues are full. Here comes Mrs. Cohen with a $350 ticket. Right, I've got a new purse, new pocketbook. Right, wearing his new suit and tie, everyone's looking so good, ready? You know what? Ban it. That's what I want to do. Ban Yom Kippur. Get little pins with YK with a red line through it. It's become to represent Judaism. It doesn't represent Judaism. We already said that Yom Kippur is only Yom Kippur because Shabbat is Shabbat. No Shabbat, no Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is called Shabbat Shabbaton, so we know we keep all the laws of Shabbat. Yom Kippur is important. I wouldn't ban it because I'd be thrown out of the rabbinical circle. Again. You know what's amazing? In the word Shabbat, you can see it. Shabbat means to rest. We'll see why in a second. But the word shuv, to return, is there as well. When you go to Shabbat, when you eat your cholent, when you dip your delicious yummy challah into the hummus, and you have the right frame of mind, you're getting loads of Yom Kippurs. Your sins are being wiped away. Keep 52 of them to the entire year. You get to Yom Kippur, and I just turn up, say a few words, sorry, I made a little mistake, I apologize. The job's done. It's all there. What would you prefer? Standing hungry for 25 hours once a year, or enjoying and eating and singing and feeling... Who would turn that down? I always point out we have 6 fast days in the Jewish calendar. We have 80 feasting days. We're Jews. We like to eat. My point is that Shabbat has within it all the elements. Whatever you got out of the temple, says King Solomon, you can get out of Shabbat. You want Kapparah? You got it. You want Torah? You got it as well. And that's the idea of Shabbat. Shabbat means to rest. What does that mean? Lie in my hammock, drinking pina colada? That sounds good. I'm going to come back now. But in addition to that, it means to stop. For us, it says stop and get involved in spiritual activity. That's really what it's about. Shabbat is to rest. It's being in a state of rest so that I can get involved in activities that I don't have time during the week because I'm all over the place. So Shabbat has taken on that role as well. There's one other connection, and then we'll finish. There's actually many connections. Shabbat and the Mishkan. First of all the laws come out of the Mishkan to Shabbat. I only know what to do on Shabbat because I know what they did in the Mishkan, right? They carry stuff in and out. We can't carry it in and out or outside for too far. Okay? They cook stuff. We cook stuff. They made herbs. They crush the herbs. They break the flour. Do that as well. Right? Everything inside there we know what we can't do. If someone says you can't do that on Shabbat, first question you should say is, what's the malacha? If it's not a malacha, then why is it a custom? Right? Is it a preventative measure? Muksa. Okay? You cannot move. You can touch. You can't move certain categories of items on Shabbat, like a pen or money. You can touch, you can't move them. Okay, so that's a preventative measure. It's not one of the malachot, but it's still there. That's a preventative measure. So we see the strong connection, the laws, the alternatives, all the items, all the vessels, it's all there. There's another really unusual connection with Shabbat and with the Mishkan, most people are not aware of. And that is, it's really, really strict. Like, crazy strict. For very small, tiny infractions. A person sits down on Shabbat with a bowl. Inside that bowl, there are raisins and peanuts. I don't like raisins. I want peanuts. I put my hand into the bowl and I remove the raisin because I don't like raisins, I want peanuts. Go to Judaism, you're going to put to death. Crazy. I mean, really, trust me, I'm a rabbi. In the context of Judaism, you don't have that. What would you say is worse? Me taking some raisins out of a bowl of peanut, mixed in with peanuts, or burning a Torah? What would you say of those two is worse? Yeah, it wasn't a trick question. Burning the Torah. Seems that way. But it's not. Burning a Torah, says the Gemara, you get malkut. Burning a Torah, heaven forbid. Oh my goodness, heaven forbid. Who would do such a thing? I mean, people have done it. But who would do such a thing? And yet I can't. Now, we don't kill people for these things nowadays. Even in the old days, it was very difficult to put someone to death for it, but it did happen. Okay? As we know once in the Torah itself, with warning and with witnesses and all the rest of it. But just as a theoretical formula, it's really for small infractions. And you don't see that anywhere else. Except in the Mishkan and the Beit HaMikdash. A Kohen goes in. His clothing's too long. It's too short. It's got a stain on his clothing. He has the wrong thought in his mind. Piggle, when he brings a sacrifice, oh, no. It's also, when am I ever graded by my thoughts? What, because I didn't have the right thoughts, like I didn't do it? It's unusual. It's very, very unusual. Small infractions. His pants that he wears, Cohen had 4 items. They're too short, too long. Oh no, terrible. Very, very unusual. Small infractions. Why is this? Why are we punished so severely on Shabbat and the Beit HaMikdash, the Mishkan? And elsewhere in Judaism, not so bad. The worst of the death penalty appears on Shabbat. It's so, trust me, it's just out of whack. So I'll share with you an answer I read of a great rabbi who I didn't get to meet, unfortunately, but I heard his lectures and I read a number of his books. His name was Shimshon Pinkus. Very great man. His books translated in English and they're beautiful as well. Even in English, they translate well. So I heard him say, I read one of his speeches, they typed it up. And he says something very, very amazing about this. He says, every mitzvah is like a different part of the body. Some mitzvot are like a foot. Some mitzvot are like a hand. Some mitzvot are like an ear. Some mitzvot are like a nose. Could you theoretically live without a foot?
Yes.
You could. Unpleasant, but possible. We see many veterans do. Could a person live without a hand? Absolutely. So when a person is doing surgery on a hand, a doctor, they want to get it right. But, you know what I'm saying? They can miss here, a few millers here and there, you know, stitching up. Right? My good friend and old chavruta, Jay Korngold, is a plastic surgeon, good area of medicine. Any better than that is dermatology, we'll leave that aside. He said, you're doing the hand, you're just like, you know. But can you compare that to heart surgery or brain surgery? No. Because when you come to the heart or the brain, they say, I don't say this, but they say that not all doctors are that smart, but the brain surgeons and the heart, they're actually smart. They actually are really smart. There's a reason why we say it ain't brain surgery, right? Because if it is, you got to be smart to do it. When you do heart surgery and you do brain surgery, every millimeter counts. You don't mess around. One hair's breadth either way, lose the brain, lose the heart, God bless you. It's all done. You lost the person. Foot, leg, a hair, you live without. Shabbat and the Beit HaMikdash are the heart and the brain of the Jewish people. Hashem says, listen, I know it sounds out of context with everything else in Judaism, but when it comes to these two, every small detail counts. Because you can't live when these are being misused. It's got to be done and done in the right way. So Shabbat, yes, it's very detail-oriented. You may not enjoy it. It's very detailed. Can I open this package? Can I rip through that? Right? Can I move this object? Can I move flowers? Yes, you can. Can I move that flowered plant? No, you can't. Right? It's very, very detailed. I teach a course on Hilchot Shabbat. Right? I just never reach the end. It's just so much. It's just so much. Every detail, every tenuah, everything. It's heart surgery. This is who we are. This is who we are as a people. So the Beit HaMikdash relives and is available to all of us at your Shabbat table. We shall stop over there. Thank you all very much for being part of this. Thank you. Shalom.
Shabbos.